We're here today with Diane Yacobi. Diane is an intuitive tarot reader. She's a seer, she's a mentor, she's a coach, and she's a healer. And actually, I'm going to say this in full transparency. Diane has been guiding me for about 17 years. And she's a brilliant guide, friend, and mentor. And I'm really grateful to have her in the show. Diane, if you could just tell us all your story about how you started to help people and see life in a different way.
Yeah, okay. When I was young, I had a voice in my head constantly screaming at me, not this, do this, telling me, screaming. And I realize now it was my guides, my angels around me telling me to live my life in a different way. I had been I would say, had a very strict life. My parents wanted me to live a certain lifestyle, to conform, to always think a certain way. And I knew that I could not do that. I just could not be that person they wanted me to be. But I was young, immature, didn't realize this, but this voice was screaming at me. I went through a disastrous relationship, and a friend of mine who was very spiritual herself led me literally by the hand and took me to a course which changed my life. I became me. I realized there were other people that were spiritual like me. It wasn't just me, just alone. And it started me on a journey of self-fulfillment and helping others. And I was working in an office. I was working in a lawyer's office, terribly straight-laced. I was very unhappy. And one day something came through the letterbox at home, and it was an introduction to do tarot reading. I just picked it up and said, and I just knew it was the answer. So I did the course, and I've never looked back. And it's changed my life. So I have different friends, I have a different lifestyle, and whatever I know that if I want something, it will come. It will come to me, because I embrace spirituality. I embrace that there are things around us that we can't understand. I know for a fact that I have these spirits around me that are helping and guiding me. And I have never felt so fulfilled.
So what age was it when you were working in the office and you suddenly got this letter and you started to change the course of your life?
I think I must have been about 30, my late 30s, I think. And I had been leading a very conventional life and a very sort of strict life, had to do this, everything was in lines, linear, everything was very linear. And I just thought, but I had this voice screaming at me and I didn't know what it was. They were telling me repeatedly, Spirit, this is not the way forward. And when I started learning the tarot cards, when I started doing courses, when I started mixing with people who were in touch, were in the light, I felt happy. I'd found my tribe, and I never looked back. I didn't have the same friends anymore. Everybody that came into my life from then on were people that were grounded, but very, very open and spiritual.
So when you did the tarot course and then you started to actually work with clients.
Yeah.
What was it like to actually use that voice that before was sort of interrupting your day, to suddenly use that voice to help others? Was it a quick process where you could hear the voice?
Yeah. No, sorry. The voice stopped when I started learning to meditate. the voice stopped after that course, that first course. And then I was at peace. When that voice stopped, I was suddenly at peace. And then I started reading for friends, first of all. And I just thought, oh, this is so stressful. What am I going to do? So I just let go. I said what was ever coming to my mind. And that sort of, and I realized it may not make sense to me, but it made sense to them. So whenever I do a reading, I say what I'm being guided to say, and it may be complete nonsense to me, but that other person will resonate. 9 times out of 10, that person resonates with it. And it leads me to other avenues, we'll go down other avenues with them. So I trust this angel and this spirit. I actually see that spirit sometimes. They don't show me their face very often, but he wears a hood. And I've also got another guide, a young man, who takes me sometimes on his canoe, and he takes me around. I can't really describe it, but I really do have these guides that I can call on. It's very beautiful.
Yeah, I was just thinking that's so beautiful. By the way, this is my dog Ginger, for anybody looking.
Hey, Ginger.
She's a bit old, so she suddenly wanted to sit on my lap. Nearly 50. So to shift from a really conventional life to suddenly being truly yourself and listening to your guides, and then having these experiences with friends and then clients, how did that change the way you viewed your life? Did you become happier, more content, more satisfied? How did that change you?
Well, I became very happy. People couldn't understand it. None of they kept making fun of me, but I was so strong in my belief, and I gathered like-minded people around me. So people, and so gradually, those people who thought I was completely off the wall or whatever, gradually disappeared, and I gathered new friends. My family, they don't really understand, although I've got a very spiritual cousin, and we get each other 100%. But people, I don't care what people think. I'm just happy that I've got the people that I love around me. They'll never understand. And it's pointless trying to push my beliefs on other people. They accept me for who I am. I'm quite a grounded person. So that side of myself, they love and respect. And the other side, they don't go near, and that's fine.
Yeah.
I think I'm on both sides of the fence, really, and I'm happy with that.
Yeah, that makes sense, because in all the years that I've worked with you, you're a brilliant seer, and if I'm having some trouble at work with a friend, or you can sort of see behind the curtain of what's going on, which can be incredibly helpful. You can see things I just can't see at all, especially as I'm right in the thick of the emotional trauma.
Yeah.
And you're able to just pinpoint what's going on, always in a way that's very kind and fair. But yet, on top of that, the coaching part of you, because you're so grounded, you give extraordinary advice. You've mentored me, mentored friends of mine, and it's almost like you've been the light at the end of a dark tunnel for me and people I know who have worked with you, where you've sort of guided them through the biggest dramas of their life so they can get to the light which you can see and they can't.
Oh yeah, I can see the light for these lovely ladies that you've introduced me to. And everybody has to have, unfortunately, you have to learn from these traumas. It makes you the person that you eventually are. It's great learning experiences turn you into a well-rounded human being. And although they feel terribly traumatic and the end of the world, it's just a door, it will open to a new chapter, and it will be bliss, totally bliss. And, you know, I speak from personal experience. If I have walked away from a situation that at the time was terribly traumatic, and why did I do it, and beat yourself up and all the rest of it, but I know that spirit has pushed me in that direction. And in fact, the more traumatic the push, the more I know the angels have had a hand in it, because one has signs beforehand. And if you don't listen to those signs, I can only speak from my personal experience. I was in a job I was very unhappy with, and I knew I had to leave. I had to leave, but it's not easy leaving a job, especially, you know, if you depend on the income and whatever. But spirit kept bringing these unbearable situations into my workplace, unbearable people, until I realized this is spirit. They were making it worse and worse, until I thought, this is not normal. Spirit is pushing me out. And I never looked back. I became self-employed. I started my online psychic business with my cousin, who was coincidentally being made redundant. And we just started, never worked for anybody else again, never would do it. And it was spirit that was pushing me out. So I always believe that spirit will have a helping hand in bringing you to your new chapter.
I think
and it will always be better.
Having that way of seeing life must be very calming for the soul, to know that you have this feeling that you're not alone.
It is. And in times of real problems, when you really feel you can't get out of it, I always say to my spirit is looking after me, and this is for my better good. You know, this is for my new chapter. Whatever happens, I know that I will benefit at the end of it. And I've been through some stuff, believe me. So I look back on my life and I think I wouldn't be here if I hadn't done A, B, or C, or A, 1, 2, or 3 hadn't entered into my life. Do you get it? And I'm sure, as you know, I don't fight it anymore. That's really the bottom line. I just don't fight it. I let it happen.
And what's that like when you're just in your social life? And do you ever have those moments where you can suddenly see something about someone?
I see I do see things about people, and I'm looking at my friends and things, and I know how far to. I know what I can. How can I put it? I don't expect too much from certain people, and I just have the conversation that I know that they're comfortable with. You can't get everything from everybody. There's some friends I do certain things with, other friends I have other interests with, and other friends I know that they are limiting themselves. I just accept people for what they are, and maybe it's their journey. And if it's asked for, I will give guidance. If it isn't, I just accept people. I have no real expectations. I'm much more tolerant of people than I used to be, put it like that. Because we've all got our own story, we've all got our own journey, and we've all got our own past that we make decisions about. We make decisions based on our own experiences. They may not seem right to me, but it's their decisions.
I absolutely agree. And I'm wondering, you've got children and grandchildren. How do they see what you do? Do they ever ask for your seer advice?
Oh, yes. I've got 2 sons who poo-hoo it, but when they're in trouble, they ask me to pull a card, which is quite amusing. And I've got a granddaughter who's very spiritual and is mini-me, and wants me to. I've just given her first deck of the tarot cards, and I'll let her play with them. She's 14, she's very young, but I don't, her mother is a doctor, doesn't have any, has no belief in this. That's fine. But my granddaughter does. So let her find her own way. I've given her the cards, let her read about them, let her pull a card. And when she's ready, she's only 14.
But when we do readings together, I always feel like the card for you is just, it's a door that opens and then you're telling me a story of things. And I'm thinking, my God, this is so fascinating to watch how you interpret things and you weave this whole story. It's as if how are you seeing the story?
Well, I use the cards as a guide, really. And then after a while, it just takes over. I use the cards as a sort of a point to look at, and it opens the door. I don't know. It opens. If I look at a card that I've pulled for you on your behalf, it seems to tell me a story. So I just start, and then another card will then take me round into another area, perhaps. I try and I don't know what happens. I think this is my spirit. It's not me. It's definitely my spirits or my guides within myself talking to you.
I understand.
And you know what? And you know what? When I finished, I completely forget what I've said. Completely. I don't take the energy of that away with me.
Yeah, I understand that a lot because when I do Reiki sessions with people, sometimes I get downloaded little films of their feelings or something emotional that's affecting.
That's interesting, yeah.
Yes, like something emotional that's affecting their body or their health or mental health or whatever. But then at the end of it, for the most part, it's just gone from me. It's just, it's a moment for them. And they'll say to me maybe a few weeks later, do you remember when you said this? And for the life of me, I can't remember it.
And that's it. And it's nothing personal. It's not, but I won't remember because it's the way I think of, otherwise I would be overloaded with everybody's emotions. And it's spirit protecting me. But I'm in that moment when I'm doing the cards, I'm absolutely there.
And there's another thing I've noticed in the years when I've worked with you, is you're able to see things about people that sometimes it might be months later that it actually, they'll come to me and say, oh, I'm feeling this, or I'm about to do that. And in my head, I think, oh, I sort of was already privy to that information. It's just been on a few occasions where I've been working with people and I've been, having to look more closely at whether the working relationship's going to work, whether it's good for them. Really, a lot of the time is it good for both of us? And you may have said to me, actually, this is great for them to work with you. It's going to be so good because this is happening in their life. And I thought, oh my goodness, I didn't have a clue about that. And luckily then they tell me, and then I say, oh, I may have already known that, because you see quite far ahead. It's I find it extraordinary how you see.
I do. What I do is I pick up the essence of that person through the cards, and once I've picked it up, I can see everything around them, and what I need to know, basically, what you need to know, obviously, and then that when I tell you that, it's gone. I perhaps don't pick it up again until another reading, in which we have to look at that person again. And then I think timings have no meaning with spirit. So I may pick up a situation, but it may not have occurred yet, or it may have occurred. And so I just pick up the essence of that person. I can't really explain it in any other way.
I get that. I've worked with you where what you've helped me do is cool my upset, or cool down my irritation, and make me more understanding of what's going on for the other person I may be anxious about, and it's made me feel kinder and just given me a softer approach. So it's been incredibly helpful for me in how I deal with my day-to-day life. So and also that coaching element of you, you give great mentoring advice and you coach me too. It's just phenomenal when I work with you. I always feel safer, softer and kinder.
I'm really pleased because I think that you are a dynamic woman. And I think you're one of these people that want to rush and do it because your mind is so active. People don't always get it. So that more feminine side, I'm trying to call it that, but a softer side, perhaps, then you draw more people to you. They feel less threatened, let's put it like that, maybe.
Yeah, that's it. You help me feel safer in myself to be me. And you'll say to me sometimes, just wait, be patient. You don't have to rush to resolve this. And it's incredibly valuable it's like having a coach. You don't always have to do something immediately. You don't always have to change everything in that second. And the way I think that you help people is, again, it's very grounded and, take your time. I like that way. I think that's just you as a person.
I would love to say it's me as a person, but I've learned that with spirit's help, I always think that if you allow things to unfold, then you don't make knee-jerk reactions without knowing the full picture. And I've learned that, when the cards have shown me that when you do sit back, and I've had countless examples of that, and let it unfold, you will then be able to be in more control because you know everything. Nothing's going to come and hit you on a sideways punch, So I think, and know that everything is perfect the way it is. Once you've understood that, and also I think if something horrible happens to you, you think, there's nothing I can do. I need to just bend with it, and just see where this goes. That's as simple as that, really. I think that's basically how I like to. And then you won't get wound up, you don't get stressed, you don't get annoyed, your blood pressure doesn't go up. And I just think I'm being looked after, I'm being guided, and the right person will come into my life, the right things will happen. It all will happen perfectly.
And when you're saying that, I'm thinking the words that come to mind, I'm always having to remind myself, and people that come to see me as well, is surrender and trust, because it's really hard to do those.
Yes, that's it. Surrender and trust. That's exactly the words I was looking for. That sums it up perfectly.
Well, you're the living embodiment of that.
I think I like to work with spirit, and I've learned that, and spirit has shown me that way.
So we're going to wrap this up now with one more question. What would you like to see more of in the world?
Peace, harmony, more, I was going to say common sense, less self-interest, more enlightenment, everything that right-minded people want, all this desire for land and control. It's going to be our destruction. There's so much anger and terrible wickedness in the world, and the good people are not being heard. I want that to change. That's really it. Why can't we be heard? Just peace and love. I suppose it's a bit of a cliche, but that's truly what I want.
I think it's a perfect cliche. Peace and love and being heard if you're a good person. Yes,
exactly. Why does one person can ruin everything for everybody. I don't get it, you know, just greed and and take away greed if you can. You know, it's destroying everything.
So removing greed and replacing it with peace and love.
Peace and love and humanity and caring for others, you know. Why does one person have to have billions of pounds, and or why don't they give some of it away? How can they spend all that in a lifetime? It's ridiculous.
And I think looking at the way you feel such contentment with your life, it from where you stand, it must seem ludicrous because you're so guided by the light, as it were. So
Yeah,
you know contentment from just feeling that intimate connection. And it maybe their greed is because they don't have that connection whatsoever.
I agree with you. Totally agree with you. People that are not happy inside try to, it's like an illness, they want to pass it round.
But hopefully with this show, we can put the light on people with light inside them who are shedding their light.
Oh, pass it on. Pass it on.
Pass on the light.
Yeah.
Well, you do. You do.
Thank you. And you do too.
Trying my best. Thank you very much.
Lovely
interview.
Lovely.